What's going on, everyone? I am back to cover this NBA slate for Monday. We have a two-game slate tonight. I'll also be dropping a MLB video. As soon as I finish making this video, I'll be making my baseball video for tonight, so you can stay tuned for that. Speaking of some other sports, NFL season is like 10 days away. So I posted the season pass on the website if you wanted to get it. Also, I'm giving away 2 free passes on Twitter if you want a chance to win it for free. It's at the DFS process. You can just retweet a tweet, or you can visit the website dfsprocess.net if you wanted to join for football or for rest of NBA or rest of MLB or even for like a week. So you can check out the website, links at the top of the description if you wanted to join. And without further ado, let's get into this video. So like always, appreciate if you hit the like button on the video and would subscribe if you have not already. Starting off at point guard, as always, we have James Harden at 11-3. He looked really good. Last game only had to play 28 minutes because that game was out of hand. Russell Westbrook being back affected him a little bit, but not a ton. Like some of the assists went down, the rebounds went down a little bit. But Harden had like one of his best shooting games. He also played just so many less minutes because it was a blowout. So don't really know like the full extent to how Harden's going to play alongside Westbrook in this series. Like Westbrook looked pretty poor. He took 13 shots, just made 3 of them. He looked rusty. But we know Westbrook's going to take away some of Harden's assisting and rebounding. So just for that reason alone, high price tag, I'm not really on Harden. Westbrook was on like a 25 to, I think like around a 25-minute limit last time out. So he didn't have to, they didn't have any chance of him playing more than that because it was a blowout. We'll see if it goes up a little bit tonight. I think he's still probably limited to maybe like 30 minutes, but at least. But who knows? Hopefully we'll get some clarity on that news. CP3 was like one of the only Thunder players that could shoot the basketball. Him and Shooter, except Shooter got ejected for a nut punch. But Chris Paul, it's a must-win for him. He doesn't want to go home against his former team. I think he's going to have a pretty good game. Has 8,200. He looks fine. I like Goran Dragic quite a bit at 66. Ever since he's been starting, he's been playing great. Been playing minutes in the 34 to 36 range in close games. He's been playing pretty good alongside Jimmy Butler and the rest of the starters. The assist numbers are there. The rebounds are a handful of rebounds a game. And he's been one of their most consistent shooters and consistent scorers. He's been knocking down the three. He's been knocking down about 45-50% of his shots every game. So I feel like he's a pretty consistent option tonight. The Bucks also give up a lot of wide open threes, so Dragic should have a bunch of open looks tonight. So I think he looks like a pretty reasonable option at 6,600. Bledsoe is questionable. We'll see if he's out. Then it's just going to be a bump to Chris Middleton, a bump to George Hill. So that's going to open up some value if he's out. Moving on to shooting guard, we have Butler at 81. He got hurt in that last game against the Pacers. So only played 23 minutes. But he's been pretty aggressive in terms of shooting. He shot 15 or more times in like most of that series. Like 3 out of the 4 games, he shot at least 13 times. And we know he's very good with the stocks, with the blocks and steals. I don't know if I want to pay like 81 for him. I think that's a reasonable price tag, but I need like 50 fantasy points for a guy at that price point. We have SGA, who I'm expecting to bounce back tonight after a terrible performance. He was just god-awful. Him and Gallinari both were awful in that Game 5. Now it's a must-win for them. I expect Shai Gilgeous to bounce back. He was playing pretty well in the other 3 or other 4 games in the series. Just had a bad game. It happens to the best of us, so I think you can go right back to SGA. I think people will be off of him because of how bad he was last game, but anytime you can get some reduced ownership on a 2-game slate, you gotta definitely consider it. Schroeder at 64, I think that's reasonable too. Was gonna play like big minutes and then he got ejected. Was also playing pretty well. Gordon played 32 minutes. He played pretty well. Didn't make a 3, but he still had 33 fantasy points. He shot a bunch of 2s. And he's been pretty aggressive this series. Even with Westbrook back, took 17 shots, so that was good to see. The Heat players, Hero and Robinson and Nunn actually got some action in that Game 4, so we'll see if he actually gets a role. Maybe he'll take some minutes away from like Derek Jones or who knows coming off the bench. Uh, I'm not that interested in either any of those three. Like Hero's a little bit too expensive at 55. Robinson's pretty expensive too at 49 for a guy that mainly is just going to shoot threes, and you're going to need him to like make most of his shots to get you that GPP winning score. Then there's like no real value play. I guess you could look at Iguodala at 35 or DiVincenzo at just 3,400. DiVincenzo would be a little bit more interesting if Bledsoe happened to miss. Small forward, I like a couple of options like Covington. I think looks pretty fine. Was on him last game and had his best game of the year in terms of shooting from three. He had his best, I think, his career high in threes with 6 threes made. Looked pretty good out there, and his minutes are going to be pretty secure, I think, just for his defense. And played 31 and 34 the last 2 games. If he's in foul trouble, like he was in some of the earlier meetings, he lost some minutes. But I think Covington is, kind of figured out that if he doesn't play well, his minutes are not going to be there. So he's going to have to play pretty hard and get that playing time. House, 51. I'd rather go to Covington. I mean, I think Westbrook's minutes are going to come up a little bit. I mean, he had a pretty poor game in terms of just shooting, just 2 of 10, but had the rebounds were there. But I think I'd rather go Covington. I think he's a decent option, but I'm not that high on him. And I think Gordon is fine too, but right now I think I'm looking at like Gordon at 6,100, just because this position isn't super deep. He's a guy that can get you 30, like 5 to 6x upside. And he's been playing pretty well and been aggressive. That's all they kind of want, like a guy that at least he's going to shoot, even if they're not going in. I would rather have my guy taking shots than just standing around doing nothing. Power forward, we have Giannis at 11.4. He was in foul trouble in that closeout game, so he only played 28 minutes. It's been pretty frustrating because he's been good, but he hasn't had like that monster 70, 75, 80-point game yet in that first round. It's a different matchup here, but the Heat defense is pretty good, so I'm not expecting like Giannis to have an easy, like being able to coast to like 70 fantasy points in this one. He has been decent against some 55 fantasy points, but that's not really going to cut it at 11.4. I think I might just go with like a balanced lineup today. I don't think I will pay up for either Harden or Giannis just because there's not a lot of value on the slate. Maybe if some opens up, then I'll consider it, but I feel pretty comfortable going with like a balanced approach. Like Covington at 58, a guy that can get you 30s to 40 fantasy points. Good price point, definitely underpriced. And it's just a closeout game I think he's going to play. Mid-30s in minutes. At center, Bam looks fine at 77. It's a spot where they're going to need him out there just to defend some of the bigs on the Bucks, like Giannis and Brook Lopez. Not the best matchup for Lopez because Bam doesn't really shoot threes at all. But he's going to be out there on the court. He's a good defender. I think he looks fine at his price point. Adams was playing great. He had 31 fantasy points, a double-double in just 25 minutes. Didn't see any fourth quarter run, so I think I go back to him. They're going to need like at least some consistent player, and Adams has been that in terms of rebounding. He can get some open looks. Like Lou Dort's been so bad that last game, I would not be shocked at all if he doesn't even start this game. I think they might start they could go with a different approach and start like Baisley maybe, because he at least can shoot the 3, and the Rockets don't have to play 4. The Thunder don't have to play 4-on-5 like they do when Dort is in the game on offense. So I could see Billy Donovan doing a shakeup to the starting lineup. If it's not like Baisley starting, maybe they start Schroeder, but I don't think Dort's going to play a lot. So Adams, he looks pretty good at 58, like a double-double candidate. He still hasn't gotten you any blocks or steals. Like, that is so unfortunate for a center. He's gotten 0 steals 3 games, has 1 block in 4 games in this series. So he's a guy that on the season is averaging, I know stocks are pretty random, but he's at least averaging about almost 2 stocks per game. Even if he gets close to that, like even if he gets 1 or 2, you're going to be looking pretty fine. Because should be able to get a double-double pretty easily. And then last but not least, I think at util I'll probably just go with like Bam. If I'm going with like a balanced approach, he's like that perfect candidate like Bam or Butler. Expect Bam to, he wasn't like getting a ton of looks in that last series. He got some looks like that game 2, he only had like 7 shots, only 7 points, but he's going to be able to play like probably 34 to 36 minutes if he's not in foul trouble or anything like that. It's a spot where he has been decent against him, averaging 38 fantasy points, all those games he kind of struggled shooting. So I feel pretty comfortable that he can at least make value. He's a good passer too. So, he gets some assists, rebounds, double-double candidate as well at a pretty reasonable price point. So those are the 6 guys that I have my eye on as of now. Let's go over to Fanduel and see how their pricing looks. Alrighty, over on Fanduel, at point guard we have Westbrook at 94. If his minutes going to be up to 30, I think you could look at him, but I think there's a chance I'll at least be cautious with him, especially because this is not a must-win. Maybe if they lose this game and in Game 7 you go up to his normal minutes, but I think Chris Paul looks a little bit better. Dragic looks really good at 65. And then Bledsoe, if he happens to sit, then Hill would be a great value play. There's not a lot on FanDuel. There's only a couple of options at each position, so probably going to see a lot of duplicated lineups. Same thing on Draftkings, but at least Draftkings you can play guys at different positions. On FanDuel, you might want to leave some money on the table if you want to be different or play just a low-owned guy, coming off the bench or something like that. At shooting guard, we have Butler, 85. I think that looks decent. SGA, 73. Looks okay. I think Shooter looks a little bit better at just 6K. And, position kind of dies off. You got 4 Bucks players that you can flip a coin over. Not really interested in any of them. I think Shooter just gives you that combination of floor, upside, and the minutes. At small forward, we have Giannis at 11.5. If you're not paying all the way up, you have Gordon and Gallo and House and even Crowder. I guess Bazley could be a little bit interesting. I think his minutes, if they do shake up the lineup, they could look at Bazley starting, but I don't know if Billy Donovan's going to do that. He's pretty stubborn. I think Gallo at just 55 looks pretty reasonable. He and SGA were just so bad last game. He's got to step up, and he probably knows that. At power forward, we have Bam and Covington as my favorites. Then you have Green, and then you have nobody. Could look at Marvin Williams or Noel, but there's 3 guys to consider. So going with Covington. And then at center, once again, this position is dead. You have Adams and Lopez as the 2 reasonable guys that can actually get some fantasy points. So going with Adams just at 5,500. So I said, FanDuel probably going to have a million of the same lineups because it's there's 2 or 3 guys at each position that look okay or look like viable options. So I think you want to be a little bit different if you want to take the top prize or something like that. You want to at least try to leave some money on the table or go with a bench player that might get minutes. If somebody's in foul trouble, you got to take some risks. But it's a 2-game slate. Anything can happen. So I think this video is long enough. I will be making a baseball video as soon as I finish, finishing up this one. So thanks for watching. I appreciate it. And good luck today.